Good morning.
Good morning. We still haven't figured out how to say hi. I told you to say hi first, and then you didn't.
I say good morning. It's basically a hi.
I know, but there was such a long pause in between.
So maybe you couldn't see, there's actually a countdown on the screen. So I had to wait for it to three, two, one,
Okay,
and then I said good morning. So
I gotcha.
as the
Well,
producer, you probably aren't seeing that on your end.
okay, once once it's uploaded, we're gonna see if there's a pause
Okay.
between the countdown and both of us saying hello.
Okay.
I have a little bit of a I might have to clear my throat a couple times, and I apologize for that.
Can you see the mute button on your side?
I can't wait, hold on, let me see. Okay, let me try this.
Yeah, do it.
Okay,
Perfect.
did it
No,
work?
yeah. That's exactly
Okay.
what we want. We're
All right,
taking this budget production up to the next level.
we are using the mute button. I love it. We're learning things. It's going well. How was your week?
My week was pretty interesting. Um, Finished up a couple psychology classes and then did some
Nice.
yard work, all the normal things that I love doing.
Yes. My week was also very exciting. We got to practice a whole lot of coping strategies while on family vacation. So that was a lot of fun. We went on a family vacation with family that we haven't vacationed with before. And so that brings up a lot of different personality styles and,
Not just
uncertainty.
not just family you haven't traveled with before, but family that you're not necessarily close with.
Correct. Yeah, family we haven't spent a lot of time with. So, the goal was to try to get the kids together, get the cousins together, um, to meet each other, get to spend some time as a family, which is all great. We had a great time, had a fantastic trip, but you realize that there's a lot of differences in planning styles and um, communication styles. And so it just kind of, John and I, with the kids, the times that we've traveled throughout, our lives, we've learned a system that works for us. And a big part of that system is the predictability of the schedule. So it keeps everybody from getting overstimulated. It keeps the kids from asking us 5 million questions a day. When are we going back? What are we doing? What's happening next? Which, when I get all of those questions, that is really dysregulating for me. Um, but I understand because I also like to know the schedule. So I like to know, when am I going to go back to the hotel? When am I going to have time to eat? When am I going to have time to just decompress? Because I don't want to have people time all day long either. So we had to be really flexible um, this trip, which we're not necessarily used to being as flexible with the way that we plan things. So maybe we could talk a little bit about flexibility
Yeah.
when dealing with other people.
This
What do you?
also, yeah, just reminded me of the conversation we had yesterday about learning to sit with uncertainty, which kind of feeds into that. So I think that'll be a good tie-in too.
It does, yeah. So tell me about your flexibility. How do you handle flexibility in terms of schedule changes or, planning things with other people, knowing what to expect in your week? Um, how do you handle that?
Yeah. So I think for me, it's all about expectation management. Because I say I can be spontaneous as long as I know that's what the goal is, right? So
Right.
if
So it's pre-planned spontaneity.
right, well, or a day where it's like, okay, and then free day. We're going to figure out what we're doing, right? I've done,
Right.
I like to plan just because I have anxiety. I want to know, where I'm going, what time check-in is, that kind of thing. I think we have that in common, which is why we travel well together.
Yeah.
But I've also done a vacation where it was like, okay, we're flying in to this airport. We have a rental car and we're flying out of this airport at whatever time. And so it was
And
like,
that's the only plan.
we have a loose, like, we kind of want to see some things. It was a trip to um, the East Coast in the fall. We wanted to go see the leaves, right? And so we didn't have
Yeah.
any hotels booked. We're like, we'll just drive to
Oh my gosh.
wherever we end up,
See,
right?
that's stressing me out. Like
Listen, it
going somewhere without a hotel being booked, like I'm stressed.
day one, we those plans changed, right? So we started that trip, we drove out. We're like, oh, we want to go to the easternmost point of the United States. Let's look at this lighthouse, and then we'll drive back in somewhere in Maine, right? We were in Maine,
Right.
and we will find a hotel.
Yeah.
Mind you, this was Columbus Day weekend, which apparently is like they love Christopher Columbus in Maine,
Right.
and
Yeah.
they were all about it. So we drove in to, I can't even remember what the city is, one of the main cities there, and we were like, all right, where
Yeah.
are we going to stay? So we started calling hotels, and they're like, fully booked. Nope, fully booked. Totally booked. So I'm like, all right, you take J through whatever on the Google search. I'm going to take A through K.
Oh
Like,
my
and we were just
gosh.
like, do you have a room? Do you have a room? Do you have a, right? At first it was like the cheap hotels, and it was like, I don't care if it's
Yeah.
$700, like we cannot sleep in this Jeep truck at this point. So
Right. Right.
after
Wait, so can I
that,
pause you?
yeah,
Can I pause you to just ask you a question? So I can guess that you were anxious in this moment. The person that you were with, were they just super chill and like, no, it'll be fine. Like, we'll find
no.
something, or were they also anxious? So we had like two dysregulated people.
It became very much like, okay, we might have to drive to a different state to sleep. It was also storming, and
Oh no.
the rental car that we had didn't have like fold down seats. So we did say like maybe we could sleep in this Walmart parking lot. That's not very likely that we're actually going to get any rest. Like, this is day one of
Right.
our trip. Should we, cherish sleep so that we're good, or what? Um,
Yeah.
Fortunately for us, one of the 36 hotels that we called had a last minute cancellation. Like, this was 10:30 p.m. They called and they were
Right.
like, we have a room if you can get over here in 20 minutes. Okay. So the night was saved. But the next morning, we immediately plotted out the remaining 7-day trip and booked hotels because we were like, had not even
Smart.
considered that was, I'm like, how could there not be hotels?
Yeah.
So yeah, that was a
So
lesson in spontaneity. The idea was fun until it backfired, and then I was just like, this is exactly why I plan. I don't like these kind of
yeah.
surprises, and I
Right.
don't like sleeping in a rental Jeep truck.
Right. You don't want to have to be in a position where you're like contemplating which Walmart parking lot feels the safest, right?
Yes,
Like,
exactly. During a thunderstorm, it was the craziest
yes.
rain ever. I was like, we're in the Walmart parking lot and we can't see Walmart. Like, that's how hard it's raining. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. Um,
100%.
but I do like, I can do a loose schedule if that's kind of what's predetermined. I also don't like feeling rushed though. So that's something, as long as
Yes.
um, there needs to be the expectation laid out with the person you're traveling with in advance. Like, hey, here are my 2 objectives for the day. What are your objectives for the day? Let's map out, like, logically the best way to make those things happen. And then
Hmm.
maybe a backup plan, and then, go from there. But I don't have to have like an
Yeah.
hourly schedule, but I do like to know, like, what should I be wearing? Is it appropriate for,
Right.
multiple things? Are we going to have time to come back and change before we go eat? And so that's going to kind of determine which one of the restaurants we wanted to eat at.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think like, so for me, there is this, it took me so long to acknowledge the number of things that are dysregulating for me. And so I've learned like over time to be like, "Oh, okay, I have this threshold. Like I know what my window of tolerance is when it comes to if I haven't eaten in a long time, I'm not going to be a fun person to be around, right? So I've tried to
Facts.
make sure I know yes. So I try to make sure I know like when I'm going to eat. Um if I have too many hours around other people, like you've done so much shopping with me and you know how much I hate it, right? So if if the plan is we're gonna go to like 5 different places in one day, like I'm probably gonna be done at like 3 places. I'll push through the last two, but I definitely need like a break after,
A
like before we
break
go to dinner.
and an
Yeah.
alcoholic beverage.
Correct. Like I need some like very clear decompress time, right? So like I can't just have this we're going to go here and we're going to go here and we're going to do this and it's like just an endless day of activities without decompressed time built in. And I've just learned that because I've done the thing where you start early in the morning and you just go all the way at night, and I'm just not fun to be around after a certain amount of time because I just need some decompressed time. I get overstimulated, things get too loud, I get hungry, I'm tired, like it's just not good for me or anybody else around me. Um, so I think because I learned that stuff about myself, I know that my window of tolerance is going to be where it is. And so if you are asking me to do all these things, like I'm going to do my best to be nice, but I'm probably not going to be as nice as I would be if I had a break here, you know? Um, so there was definitely like a lot of, which makes it hard, for example, for John, if he's like, okay, hey, family wants to go do this, or hey, we have this in our plans and our friends want to go do this. Um, and I'm like, sure, yeah, we can go do that, but I'm going to do my best to not be a jerk, you know? But he's like probably trying to manage these two things of like he doesn't want his wife to be uncomfortable and knows that she's going to be tired, but also he wants to be able to accommodate the group as well. So you know it's hard, like you and I talked about this a little bit, as like choosing who you travel with is such an important thing when it comes to having a good time, right? It's like you want to travel with people who aren't going to get offended if you're going to sit out on an activity
Yeah.
or if you need to take a pause somewhere. You know, you want to be with people who aren't going to be like upset about that or take it personally, like, oh, well, you don't want to hang out with me or
Same
whatever.
same food preferences is also important because I've traveled with somebody that's like, I'll just eat this roller dog from the gas station. I don't need to go to a restaurant. And I'm like,
Yes,
I'm sorry.
I
I'm
can't.
on vacation. I'm not trying to eat from every gas station that we stop at. Like part of the vacation for me is the food, right? I want to try the food
Right.
of the
Yeah,
area that I'm in. I want to experience that kind of thing. And so that is, I think, really important because that's caused me multiple
absolutely.
fights in my
Like, I'm
past.
in my 40s. I can't eat gas station burritos. Like,
Yeah,
even if I want it.
there's those people. So the particular person that I traveled back to the East Coast with, like,
Yeah.
all about it. Like, it's like think puts importance on the fact that they love a good gas station. What is it called? The tornado, I think is what they call that.
Right.
It's like a
Right.
chicken log. I don't even know what it is, but
A chicken log?
yeah, like that's my favorite kind of food to eat. Give me a gas station hot dog, and I'm good for the day. And I'm like,
Right.
this isn't like a bragging rights thing to be like saying you can eat like absolute shit, and then you feel like your body takes that shit in, and then you feel like shit for the rest of the day. I'm like, I'm not trying to start my vacation with a
Yeah.
tornado in my stomach. Like
Right.
no,
Right.
absolutely not.
Absolutely
And
not.
then
Yeah.
mom and pop joint, you're like, I mean, I'll do it one. Like we'll try like Joan and Bob's Breakfast Shack, right?
Right. Right.
But guess what? If that food wasn't good, we're going to stop somewhere else later because I'm not going to
Yeah.
force myself to eat the shit on a shingle that Joan and Bob served
100
me just because I ordered it, right? I can't.
just because it's, yeah, 100%. Yeah, so I was really like fascinated not only by the amount of like flexibility that was required out of John and I, because again, we haven't done a family vacation in a long time, like with other family members. And usually when we travel, we're traveling with people who have similar, um, styles as we do. So there isn't as much flexibility required because we're all kind of doing things the same way. And so I wanted to look at some of the psychology on um, like personality preferences. So we've all heard of like type A and type B people. That's like a pretty common, I guess, like cultural understanding, right? Where type A's are all like very organized, like very strict with how they want things done. And then the type B is just very lackadaisical and they just kind of go with the flow and there's no like rhyme or reason to any of it. And ultimately, like in terms of the psychology, this kind of comes down to how does a person manage dealing with uncertainty? And that's what you were talking about earlier, right? Is that like this conversation really is about our capacity to deal with the uncertainty of the day or the uncertainty of the experience. And so, how do people end up establishing comfort with uncertainty? And one of the things I found that was interesting was so in our early childhood, we have experiences with our caregivers, right? And what the kind of the research has found is that kids who grow up in a more chaotic environment, unpredictable environments where things very spontaneous, there's no schedule, there's no rhyme or reason, um, they tend to grow up and prefer very structured experiences. So, they might grow up and be and thrive in like the military, right? Where it's just like very structured. Everything is accounted for. They might, join a religion where all the rules are laid out and there's predictability with how people interact with each other, things like that. So those people really like having a lot of control over their day. And then the kids who grew up feeling unseen, so they felt more kind of neglected, I guess, where there wasn't a lot of attention put on them. They never felt like, they were belonged anywhere. They were just kind of invisible in their family. Those people tend to thrive on like no schedule. Like they want the full experience of being alive. So the uncertainty to them feels like aliveness. It feels exciting. It feels like they want to tap into that. So if you have a person who is more tapped into like the spontaneity of living and like we're just going to see what happens and we're like going to go with it, paired with somebody who's like I need structure and routine and I need predictability to feel safe, like they're going to be in conflict with each other because neither one of them are going to be comfortable if they're forced, to experience the world the way the other person prefers to experience the world. So how do we move to or just like compromise, there, which can be really difficult.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I think that it's it can be very fun but very challenging even to form friendships. Like, so you're not even getting to the traveling aspect yet, right? Like you're just
Yeah.
friends, you're doing a sleepover, you got to be somewhere at whatever
Yeah.
time, and one is always late and the other one's like anxious because we're going to be late, right? That fear of like, I don't want
Right.
to get in trouble, I don't want people to be annoyed that I'm late, I don't want all this other stuff. And so I've seen that
Right.
for sure in my own life. But I also really love to see when you can get that pair, like where there's mutual respect on both sides. Like, okay, I know
Hmm.
that being late is very important to you, so I'm going to make sure we're on time, but they still can
Right.
kind of live that freestyle kind of life. When you see two people like that merge, I think it's really fun dynamic to get to witness.
Yeah, and I think that's like the important part is um I think the culture, like if you look at social media and you look at, kind of the cultural narratives, there's kind of this narrative of if people make you uncomfortable, don't hang out with them, right? Or if people aren't exactly like you, then like find the people who are. But I think that what allows us to grow in ourselves, like becoming more authentic, becoming more whole, being able to understand ourselves better, is when we are with somebody who isn't like us and who disrupts the parts of us that we are really clinging to that make us feel safe. Because part of the goal is for us to learn that like those walls, that those coping strategies that we built up when we were young, a lot of times they keep us from engaging in life as an adult. It keeps us from having fun. It keeps us from being able to be spontaneous. And we might not need to be spontaneous in the way that maybe a type B might be. But we should be open to spontaneity to where we're not going to collapse into dysregulation if our schedule changes, right?
Yeah,
So if we're only hanging out with like people like us, we're never pushed to experience uncertainty in the way that really we should learn how to experience it in that way. And then the other person also is pulled more towards, schedule and towards more control and learning how to be okay. Like control, having a schedule doesn't mean that you're, a prisoner. Like you can learn how to have a schedule and still feel like you have autonomy over your life.
yeah,
But I think we as a whole have maybe started to struggle with knowing how to be with people who aren't like us.
for sure. And I remember we've talked about this a couple of times. One of the like personalities in psychology is openness, right? Someone that's
Hmm.
has more openness to experience like that growth mindset versus somebody that's
Yeah.
closed, which is going to kind of keep them where they're at. So, um,
Yeah.
I do have a question though for the listener. They don't already know this game that we play, but
Yeah.
I would like to speak to Dr. Staples really quick.
Okay. I'm
Okay.
here.
Yeah. So
Dr.
having
Staples.
having a doctor as a best friend can be a pro and a con, right? Sometimes I'm like, I don't care about the psychology. I just want to talk shit with my friend. But
Right.
then sometimes
Absolutely.
I have to be like, okay, put your doctor hat on because I need to talk to you about this. So as you were
Yeah.
just talking, as I do, I was thinking of, how this relates and something that's happened to me in my past. And now I'm really curious about this and I need Dr. Staples to weigh in.
Okay. I haven't finished my coffee
Okay.
totally, but
No, it's not
I'm
a trick
kind of. I'm
question. Yeah,
ready.
it's not
Oh,
a trick
okay.
question. Okay.
All right.
So here's my thought process. You can like confirm it or say that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Right. Okay.
Okay.
So
All right.
I for sure was way more spontaneous when I was younger. Like in my early 20s, I was like quitting my job, moving to Hawaii. Like I very spontaneity was like what I claimed. Free spirited. Hey, I'm gonna go do this thing after work real quick. No schedule, no time frame. And then I think I've always been like since the time I had my child. I was 23 when my son was born. I feel like that's when a lot more of my anxiety started. But I'm
Mm-hmm.
not sure if it because so we know brain development, right? That
Yeah.
our prefrontal cortex is still
Yeah.
developing at that age. So I'm wondering if that had more to do with legitimate like brain development and like all that kind of kicked in where I was like, no, I need to, I gotta be
I need to
more
lock
regimented.
in.
I gotta,
Yeah.
I'm a mom, like all this. They may have just happened kind of at the same time, but I'm wondering if that was
Right.
more just my brain developing into, the person I needed to
Yeah.
be, or if it had to do with the fact that I had a child. Because I know a lot of parents that still don't have their shit together,
Yeah. They're not.
So
They're not
just
locked in. Yeah.
if those had any kind of relation, I'm
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great question actually. And I think there's it's obviously both, right? I think there's both of those things, all of those things contribute to changes in how you are engaging in the world. I think the biggest part of it though, and I see this with some of the people who I talk to in practice, A lot of times that childlike curiosity, that wonder, that spontaneity that you have in your youth, a lot of times the narratives that you get during that time period often lead to internalized shame. So a lot of people are shamed
Mm.
for their
Yeah.
spontaneity and their curiosity, and they are told you're going to mess up your life, you're, X, Y, and Z. And so the response
Immature,
is,
immature, childish, you need to grow up. Yes, okay,
correct.
100%. Yep.
Yes.
I've been
So
called
if
all of
the
those.
narrative, so that tracks. Okay, good. Um, s- so unfortunately, that childlike curiosity and that childlike wonder is shamed out of people. And a lot of times when they come into therapy, um, because of that shame, they overcorrect, and so they tend to become more regimented in their lives, almost to an obsessive compulsive level, where any type of spontaneity feels like shame. It triggers shame, right? You're gonna fuck up your life. You're not allowed to enjoy pleasure. You're not allowed to just have fun, because it means you're going to get lost in it, and then you're going to be the worst mom ever, or you're going to be the worst wife ever, or you're going to, whatever it might be. So those internalized narratives really end up shifting the behavior. And when they come to therapy, the goal is, oh, can you hear that thunder out my window right now? A lot of that narrative ends up, it ends up changing their behavior, when the goal is we want to get them back to spontaneity. We want to get them back into creativity. We want to get them back into embracing the unknown or the uncertainty, that they don't know how things are going to work out. And that's okay. It's okay not to know. So yeah, does that resonate with you? Like in terms
Yeah.
of,
I mean, the OCD comment was a little offensive. I kind of.
that was Dr. Staples. It was not your bestie. It
Oh,
was.
good. Okay. No. I mean, I've been accused. So I think we kind of talked about this a little bit in the first
Yeah,
podcast, right? The authenticity paradox. Like, I
right.
love to have fun. I love to laugh. Like, I seek out opportunities to laugh, right? That's like the whole
Right.
reason I'm here in the world. And so I have had struggles in my adult life, especially in the workplace, where it's like, you're not taking this seriously, or, and I'm like, are we not allowed to enjoy our work? Like, I am selling my soul 8 hours a day in this office, right? I
Mm-hmm.
should Why are you getting mad at me for finding bits of joy during this day, right? And it's really,
Right.
you're being unprofessional, or you're being childish, and it kind of makes me a little bit sad, because I realize those people are probably the miserable ones that are,
Yeah.
suffering through their day. And
Yeah.
so that makes me
And
sad
that's
for them.
usually, that 100% is usually the case. The best coping strategy, the number one coping strategy for living, for surviving, for suffering, life is really hard. And one of the best coping strategies we have is humor. It is laughter, it is making jokes, it is taking something that is incredibly scary and painful and being able to laugh at it and laugh about it. And that does lead to resilience. I know that this thing that feels overwhelming, it can make you feel out of control. If you can make a joke about it and you can laugh about it with your friends, then the thing doesn't really have power over you anymore. You're just kind of, you're laughing at it. So anybody who says that you're not taking things seriously enough, like obviously they don't know our internal world. They're never going to know exactly how serious something is, so we shouldn't
Yeah.
expect them to, right?
Also, that's never come from my supervisor, who is the person
Yeah.
that's judging my actual work performance. It's usually coworkers, right? So,
Right. Yeah.
because
Yeah.
of my OCD, I also get all of my work done as quickly as possible at the best
Yes.
level I can perform at. And then if I
Right.
have 10 minutes at the end to make a joke about something, I'm going to go ahead and do it. But yeah,
You're gonna do it. Yeah.
yeah.
100%. Well, so okay, so to maybe um to talk about the OCD part, right? To make it less offensive towards you. I also have the same problem. So I think that's why we're such good friends
Yeah. So let's clear up something for the audience too, because I learned this in therapy like 10 years ago, right? The difference between
yeah,
OCD and OCP. And because I think we label a lot of things OCD, right? And it's not really
we do.
that disorder.
Correct.
So we tend to have those tendencies towards
Yeah.
regimen and whatever. So if you could dive into that, I think that would be really good for the listeners.
Yeah, I think that's a great topic. So, especially right now, one of the personality traits we hear a lot about is narcissism, right? Everybody is a narcissist. And so, clinically, though, you can have pathology, a personality that leads to distress in your relationships, your interpersonal relationships. So if you have a personality disorder, that means that you're coming in and your relationships with other people are, disordered. You have a hard time connecting with people, being able to maintain relationships. Maybe those relationships are consistently volatile with everybody that you're around, your coworkers, your friends, your spouses, your partners, people you're just walking past in the grocery store. Now everybody who is going to have difficulty interpersonally because we all come to the world with different experiences and expectations and things like that. So there's a lot that goes into diagnosing a personality disorder. It's not simply just one behavior or even a couple behaviors. It really has to be a consistent, persistent personality across time. If somebody is in, experiences a traumatic event, for example, they might struggle with their emotional regulation and they start having a hard time in their relationship. So, with PTSD, for example, one of the things we look at is this. Are these symptoms leading to difficulty connecting with and engaging with the people around you? We wouldn't give them a personality disorder for that because we haven't seen them have difficulty in their relationships across their life. So that's just kind of personality disorders are a completely separate thing. When we're looking at disorders, we're looking at distress and dysfunction in your daily living. Now, people in general have personality structures or personality traits, and those traits or structures are also listed by similar names. So, like you said, obsessive compulsive, personality traits, or narcissistic personality traits, or depressive personality traits. These are not disorders. These are personality traits everybody can have. You can have multiple parts of these traits. And really, the easiest way to maybe think about it is like you're a Taurus or you're an Aries or you're a Capricorn. These kind of star signs basically list a certain number of traits, and then they say this person tends to have these traits. So there are frameworks like that where people tend to fall under these categories of personality style. So I'd rather say there's personality styles versus personality disorders. And so you and I, Misty, we tend to have more of a obsessive compulsive style of in the way that we interact with the world. So for me, like my obsessive compulsive personality style, um, it has led me to compulsively um, access knowledge. Like I will compulsively study a topic just over and over and over. I mean, psychology is my obsessive compulsive thing. I will read books, I will listen to audiobooks. It's the thing that gives me dopamine, it makes me excited. But on the side where it becomes a problem is when I try to use knowledge to avoid feeling. And that's where in my own therapy, I had to learn like, oh, my intellectualizing is a shield against the experience of being human. So I'm consuming all this information in an effort not to have to feel sad or disappointed or grief or whatever. Because if I can explain it, then I can feel like I have control over it. But that doesn't mean I have a disorder, right? I just have this style of engaging with the world. And everybody has a style. And it's helpful for them to figure out what that style is.
Yeah. So the therapist that I talked to a while ago was saying, like, kind of, um, if we have OCD, we're doing behaviors out of fear that if we don't do them, something bad will happen, right?
Right.
So if I
Hmm.
don't touch the doorknob 4 to 5 times every night before I go to bed, then the house could burn down. Like, and they're usually not even like a related fear. So I thought that was really interesting.
Right.
Whereas the
Yeah,
obsessive
100%.
compulsive personality type or style, I just want it to be
Hmm.
level. If you're going to hang it on the wall, I want
Right.
it to be level. Like, why didn't we center it? Like those kind of things, right? I don't think that
Yeah.
that's,
Yeah.
I
And
know
I
the
think
house
that's
is not going to burn
something,
down. I just want it
yeah,
the way that I want it.
right. And I think that's something like probably a lot of people listening to this are like, absolutely, the picture should be level on the wall, right? Like that's not disordered thinking. Um, I do this when I'm teaching introduction to psychology. One of the best ways to think about uh, disorders or psychopathology is we look at these four categories. And two of the ones that are really important, I mean, all of them are important, but if the behavior or anything causes distress for the person, um, that's going to make me question if this is some type of disorder. So, for example, a person with OCD is going to be extremely distressed about the fact that they have to do X number of things before they can go to bed, right? And that might create for them a feeling of, I don't want to have to do this all the time. It's keeping me from getting to bed on time. I'm having to do, so it's creating a lot of internal distress. And then the other one is dysfunction. So is it keeping the person from going to their job? Is it keeping them from hanging out with friends? Is it keeping them from paying their bills, taking showers? Their daily dysfunction. So distress and dysfunction are required to give any kind of diagnosis. So, for example, I'll have people come in and they want to be evaluated for ADHD, right? And the reason they want to be evaluated is they do have ADHD traits. For example, they might struggle with like misplacing things. They're always having to turn around when they leave the house because they forgot their lunch or their license, or maybe they forget to put gas in their car, or they're leaving their lights on. They're distracted in the middle of a boring lecture. These are normal behaviors. All humans do these things, right? Um, we don't even consider ADHD if the person is coming in. If these behaviors aren't causing distress and dysfunction in their daily life, then you don't have ADHD. You are a human who sometimes forgets things, right? Or you are a human who gets distracted or gets bored easily. You might have traits of ADHD, but you do not have a disorder of ADHD. So there's these big distinctions that we look for when we're actually diagnosing for a disorder. I think that's an important thing for people to know, when they're thinking about what's happening with them.
Yeah. So this is back to April. I'm done talking to Dr. Staples. I want to circle this back real quick.
Okay, yeah. Okay, logging off.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you just went on this group trip.
Yes.
All right. So because you're a doctor, when you're on these group trips and you're seeing all of this, like, I'll label it, right? I don't know what the actual term is, like
Yeah.
dysfunctional behavior or the spontaneity that's like, so
Right.
I wish I could just read the text thread here where it was like, they just changed the plans again. Nobody's here yet. They made the
Yeah.
plans. They're not here, right? It was a lot of like,
Yeah.
I'm reading these texts and I'm getting anxiety. I'm like, oh God, I don't know what I would do. Like, this is giving me
Yeah.
anxiety. I'm not even on the trip. But
Right.
were you sitting there being like, I bet they have this, right? Do you sit there and just pick out all
No.
these personality traits in
I,
people when you're going through this to help you like have more empathy? Like, this is probably their
yeah.
autism or their whatever. I'm gonna
Right.
be,
Right.
you know.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's a great question. Probably one that a lot of people have, right?
Hmm.
How does a psychologist deal with this? Honestly, for me, number one, it's having somebody to be able to kind of discharge that frustrating energy onto, which was the text messages I'm sending you, right? I'm like, okay, I need
Oh,
somebody to know that I'm
I was fully
frustrated.
absorbing that for you.
Thank you. Yeah, I just needed to be like, ah, right? Because I'm having that frustrating experience. And then the other part of me is I don't remember where I heard that. I heard it somewhere on social media, but I loved it, whoever came up with it. But I've found myself a lot of times when I start feeling myself getting dysregulated, using the phrase, I don't have to make it that serious. This doesn't
I
have to
love
be
that.
that serious. Like, and so there were a lot of times when I needed to be flexible. The plans were going to change, and I did feel myself get dysregulated or um, get frustrated with changes in that schedule. And then I would quickly try to say, I don't have to make this that serious.
I have my
I
own
get to
version of that.
decide. Yeah, what is
It's
your
three,
version?
I call it my three questions for living a better life, right? Is anyone going to die?
Perfect. Yep.
Okay. Is this going to cause serious financial uh, situation or bankruptcy?
Right.
Can I catch a disease? Right? Is this going to make me sick?
Right.
Like, am I going to now have hepatitis for the rest of my life? Right? So,
Right.
if,
Right.
and it says so. If the answer's no, we let it go. We're not.
We let it go. Yeah.
None of
I
this
love
is
that.
going to impact me for probably longer than 5 minutes. Right? So, I really
Yes.
liked that.
Yes. Yo, that's perfect. So I think having the first step in is noticing the dysregulation, right? Like noticing, oh, I'm really annoyed. Why am I so annoyed about this? I know why I'm annoyed. I'm annoyed because the schedule is set. I went out of my way to set this schedule, and I feel like this schedule isn't being respected. And so therefore that makes me feel like a lack of I don't want to say necessarily respect, but I don't know a better word for that right now. Um, Maybe a feeling of disregard for how your behavior is impacting other people, right? So like for me, like if I change plans, I'm going to consider how that might impact the other person who was a part of those plans. And so I want to I get frustrated if I feel like that's not being reciprocated by the other person, right?
Yeah.
But then I have to remind myself, um, I can't expect me to come out of the people around me. Like I can't expect April to come out of everybody else that's around me. I can just I have a choice with how I respond to how they are engaging with me. And so in that particular situation with us making plans, I just had to say, okay, now we know what interaction is going to be like, and I don't have to make it that serious. Like I had to set a new expectation for myself about what to expect out of the interaction. So it
Yeah.
was really just me coming to terms with, am I being reasonable? Do I have to make this a big deal? And really tapping into my own coping strategies to be able to navigate the flexibility that was required for everybody to have a good time.
What are some other coping strategies that you use just in your day to day with things like that?
Yeah, so I've noticed for me, the external environment can be very overwhelming. So sound and light adds a lot to my internal experience. So if I start feeling like very dysregulated, a lot of times I'll turn the lights down or turn them off. So there's a lot of times in my office, for example, where I might have patients like back to back to back to back. And I'll turn the lights off in my office when I have a minute of nobody, meeting with anybody. And I'll try to do the box breathing, like just taking a breath in, 4 seconds in, holding it 4 seconds, letting it out 4 seconds. And I'll do like 5 rounds of that. And a lot of times I will laugh at the fact that I'm doing that. But what makes me do that a lot of times is a little bit of those obsessive compulsive personality styles where I'm like, I can't tell patients to do this when they're dysregulated if I'm not willing to do this. So even though I feel dumb doing this right now, I'm going to do it, right? So I'll turn the lights off and I'll go do it. And I always feel better afterwards.
Yeah, I think if
Um,
anything, that it kind of just shifts your focus now. So you're not thinking about the thing, you're thinking about how stupid you feel. And I think sometimes that in itself is a good enough trick to kind of bring you down.
yes, 100%. I tend to like music on pretty much all the time. Music is something that's very calming for me. And so, but if I am super dysregulated, even the music becomes agitating. So I'll just turn the music off, and just kind of turn the stimulation down on my environment in whatever way I can. So that's one way that I will try to kind of calm my nervous system down. Breath work is definitely probably the primary way that I calm myself down is just really mindful breathing, feeling the breath coming in through your nose. What does that feel like? What does it feel like when I'm exhaling? And like you said, just shifting my attention. Um, Sometimes it's going for a walk. Sometimes it's just texting you, talking to a friend for a couple minutes, just to kind of remind myself like there's no bear here, there's no emergency, I'm not in danger. Um, and those things tend to really help bring my nervous system back into a regulated state.
Yeah.
Tell me some of the ways that some of the coping strategies you've learned to help you when you're.
Yeah. So going outside, I think, is a big one, especially like in a work environment. Anytime I'm like, okay, I got to go outside. I would
Hmm.
walk. I would purposely make sure I took my breaks and I would walk. Um,
Yeah.
a brisk walk, which kind of sucked in the summer because it's, Arizona and it's very hot and sweaty. But um, going outside, taking that walk, some kind of physical activity for me is usually really helpful. Um, I find mine is typically a lot of body calming, right? Mine isn't so
Yeah.
much when I start feeling overstimulated, I immediately pick up on the physical sensations that are happening in my body. So like um, the moment I start feeling anxious, I put my hands on my heart or on my chest, right? And I can feel
Hmm.
and remind myself like, okay, this is making you anxious. What is it about it that's making you anxious? So I do kind of intellectualize that, but I know myself well enough I can pretty much immediately find out like, okay, well, let me do my 1, 2, 3, right? No one's going to die.
Yeah.
Okay. No
Right.
bankruptcy. We're not getting hepatitis. So we're going to
Right.
let this go.
Right.
But sometimes, so physically touching myself is a form
Uh-huh.
of calming. So I'm co-regulating with my own hands, right? No. So
Right. Right. Right.
um,
Yeah.
that is a big one for me. Moving my body physically from the place where I'm
Hmm.
at to a different location
Yeah.
helps me quiet. I like sometimes I would literally leave the office and just go sit in my car because it was quiet. I don't want any
Right.
external noise. Music would like all that would be just too much. So I really like
Yeah. Yeah.
moving my body, quiet times. I like to do mindfulness kind of in that same way, except mine is more um, visual. What can I see right now, right? So
Hmm.
obviously, I can feel my hands on my chest, so I'm getting that one. I'm removing all the sound, which is typically that's probably one of the most overstimulating things for me is when things get really noisy and
The sound.
chaotic. I'm like,
Yeah.
my fight or flight is like, get out of here. I sleep
Yeah.
with earplugs in. Like the sound is too much for me. So, but I do really like visual grounding. Like, what colors am I seeing
Hmm.
right now? Is there any
Right.
shape? Can I see any shapes in the branches of that tree? Like looking at the clouds, if we have
Right.
clouds. Patterns, I look for pattern recognition, anything that's, again, taking my focus off of what has happened and bringing
Hmm.
myself back into my body and my awareness. Um,
Right.
and then if it's a huge thing, obviously I'm calling you or I'm texting you.
Right.
You gotta hear what just happened.
Which which I think is like a really important piece here. So something that I've really And I think you and I, even talking about holistic mental health, and one of the big things you and I wanted to talk to people about was like friendship and being connected with other people, and like how do you do that? How do you sustain that? It requires a lot of flexibility, as we've talked about in this, episode. But when it comes to regulation, I think co-regulation in adulthood is something that a lot of people struggle with. There's this sense of I should be able to handle this alone. And if I can't handle it alone, this dysregulation, then there's something wrong with me. But we were never meant to handle any suffering alone. I mean, the minute you're born, you're crying and somebody rocks you and picks you up and holds you. And that is something we still need in adulthood. We still need people around us who will say, "Hey, you look like you just need a hug right now." Right? Just let me give you a hug. But that is a really difficult thing for some people, right? To to feel safe enough in their bodies to allow co-regulation with another person. And co-regulation doesn't have to be physical, but it could be something as simple as calling your friend, right? Or talking to your friend and allowing their calm to help bring you into calm. So your energy, people will absorb your chaos or they'll absorb your calm. So having people that are around you that you know are going to be kind of a steady, safe person, that can help regulate you, it's invaluable because there are going to be times where you can't do it on your own.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I know, for me, that's also something I've really tried to tap into, for my own self is just, like, for example, with this family vacation, there were times when he was dysregulated too. We're traveling with three kids. We're both dysregulated, right? I'm just trying to keep everybody happy and fed and, getting everybody dressed. And, we just have all these needs of these five people. And so just taking a moment for John and I to say, hey, we're both dysregulated. Let's just go sit down and just have a minute of quiet together, hug each other for 20 seconds or whatever. And a
20
lot of times
seconds.
I know, right?
I'm
It's
claustrophobic just thinking about it.
just squeeze real tight.
Don't hold me down.
So initially it would feel like, oh, I don't want to sit here for 20 seconds or whatever, right? When we first started, like, okay, this is just for co-regulation. Let's practice this, engage in this practice of co-regulating together. Um, and sometimes it could be something as simple as like, hold my hand for 20 seconds or give me a hug. Now it's like, just give me a hug. But I'm somebody who likes having a weighted blanket. So any kind of pressure sense feels comforting to me. So a 20-second hug is definitely comforting, like, because if I don't have a weighted blanket, please just squeeze me right now so that my body can feel safe and grounded. And that's just taken time for me to be able to be comfortable saying, I just need a hug right now for like 20 seconds so I can feel like I'm gonna collapse into my dysregulation. Um, and yeah, that's been really helpful. So
I'm glad that the hug works for you. I'm trying to get there. I'm really trying to get there.
yeah, I mean, you don't have to, but I think getting to the point of mostly being comfortable starting with co-regulating with another person, um, that can create a sense of safety that is on a different level. It creates more connectedness and more vulnerability and intimacy with the people that you're around. If you say, "Hey, I know you're going to help me when I'm struggling, and I'm going to help you when you're struggling," um, that could be really beneficial overall. Yeah. So
Yeah. For me, touch when I'm already spiraling is just that much
yeah,
more like
yeah.
don't touch
Don't do
me.
it.
We're gonna pretend. I
Yeah,
like everyone to just pretend we're ignoring that I'm having a meltdown right now. Just do your, because then if
Right.
I know I've interrupted your day, like I feel like a burden on top of that, and then it just becomes a big thing. I'm getting better, but those are I'm like, don't look at me, don't touch me, pretend everything's fine. I'm gonna get my shit together over here without being a spectacle, and then we're gonna just continue
100%.
as if nothing has happened.
Yeah. Yeah, we had that moment at one point when you were at the app visiting last time, right? Where like the kids were being loud. I think Sarah was being real loud. And I don't know what was going on in the house. But just needed to go outside. I think you were just overstimulated at some point. So you sat in the pool and we were just like, we're just gonna give Misty a moment. She just needs some quiet time. We're not gonna try to hug her. We're not gonna talk to her. We're just gonna give her a moment. And that's what we did.
And it worked out fine. I was fine. I just needed like 10, 15 minutes of quiet time outside, vitamin D.
Yeah, and it worked out great. So that's also part of it is everybody's regulation needs are going to be different. I don't expect yours to be the same as mine. You don't expect mine to be the same as yours. But we do try to honor and respect what each of us needs. So even if we're together, like we traveled to St. Louis together, even though you don't like hugs or anything like that, there were times when I was dysregulated and you were like, okay, I'm gonna give you a hug.
I'm giving you a hug.
My comfort zone.
This is gonna fix your problems.
Like, stepping out of your comfort zone because just like, hey, she needs some help right now. So I appreciated that, even though it was maybe not something you would prefer either. So
look, I am great at meeting someone else's needs.
Right.
I will gaslight myself out of my own. I'm like, you're fine. You don't need any of this. This is gonna so I'll for sure. I will listen. I would walk 100 miles for somebody else. I'm not going to do it for myself, though. Like, it's not going to work. So
you just don't want anybody else to have to walk 100
miles. Oh my God,
I
would no, absolutely not. If somebody walked 100 miles for me, I would be mortified.
We're gonna get there.
I know.
We're gonna get there.
That's part of my journey, guys. We'll get a little bit. I think that would be a really fun topic for a future podcast. It's just like, where are we at? Where are we trying to get to? And where have we been on kind of our journey of mental health and things we still struggle with? I know it's important for you as a doctor to show your human side. And so I think that would be really
100%. All right. Well, I think we've said enough.
We've said a lot.
We've said a lot. So I think we should just leave it here. If anybody has any questions, concerns, feedback, we're happy to take it.
Yeah. Oh, we have an email now too, guys. I'll drop that in the comments for this so you guys can see our email. If you guys have a topic that you would like to hear us discuss, you can send that to us, or any questions or feedback. We're open to that as well. So, all right.
We'll see you soon. Bye.
All right. Bye.